Greetings everyone and welcome back to the channel. As you can see, I'm going to be going through Matthew chapter 24, which I think is a very important chapter to go through, probably one of the most important chapters to really understand, because it not only tells us about events that happened in the past, but also tells us about what's coming in the future, because Matthew chapter 24 has a double application. And it's even said that history has a tendency of repeating itself. So the things that happened in the past, which are written in chapter 24, there are similar things that will happen in the future. So it's good for us to understand this chapter so we can prepare for what's coming in the future. So verse 1 of Matthew chapter 24 says, "And Jesus went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came to him for to show him the buildings of the temple. And Jesus said unto them, See ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down." So the Matthew chapter 24 is actually a conversation that's happening between Jesus and his disciples, and as they came out from the temple where they had been, the disciples pointed to the buildings. It says here plural buildings of the temple, because the Jewish temple was probably the most important building to the Jews at the time, in the same way that the Burj Khalifa in the United Arab Emirates is probably the most important building to those who are from that part of the world. It's mostly tall buildings nowadays that are considered to be important, but in the days of the disciples, it was the temple that was considered to be the most important structure for them. So Jesus said to them in verse 2, "See ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down." So, but nowadays we see, for instance, President Trump, who's shown here in the photo, praying at what's called the Wailing Wall or the Western Wall. Sometimes what they do is they write a prayer on a piece of paper and they stick it in the cracks of the wall. And then here we have Ivanka also praying at the Wailing Wall. And I think you already saw photos of Mike Pence. So here we have Mike Pence at the Wailing Wall. And we have Benjamin Netanyahu, real name Michalski, is actually Polish. This is probably a better photo of Mike Pence, who was once the vice president of the United States under Trump. And then we have Barack Obama. So it doesn't really matter whether you're a Democrat or Republican, they all seem to go to Jerusalem to pray at the Wailing Wall. So this is believed by some to be a remnant of the Jewish temple. But here we clearly see that Jesus said, "There shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down." So what is this wall then that is being prayed to? It's definitely not a part of the old Jewish temple, because that would make Jesus a liar. So this is actually part of a Roman fort that was near the temple in Jerusalem. There are some historians and researchers who believe that this location where we see all these politicians and significant people praying it's not actually near the site of where the Jewish temple used to be. And we have others like Javier Milei, the president of Argentina, as well, praying at the Wailing Wall, and it's actually, you can see he's getting emotional here. But this is all, they are being deceived, because this is not part of the Jewish temple. The Jewish temple was totally destroyed. There's nothing left of it. Verse 3, "And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, Tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world. So the disciples misunderstood. They thought that the destruction of the Jewish temple would be also the end of the world. They combined about three things. There are three questions here, but they thought that all these things would happen at the same time and it will be the end of the world. So the three questions were, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world? It's interesting that they asked him privately after they were on the Mount of Olives, after leaving the temple. For those who've read the New Testament many times, you'll find that Jesus often answered, or the disciples often asked Jesus questions when they were in private, when there wasn't a large crowd there, that's when Jesus would normally answer their questions if they had any questions. For instance, when he told them parables, they would not understand the parables, and then they would ask him for the meaning of the parable. Normally that would be in private. And Jesus did say that we should not throw pearls to the swine, meaning we should not don't try and witness to those who are not ready to accept the truth. So here we find that Jesus was asked these questions in private, and his answers came in verse 4. And Jesus answered and said unto them, take heed that no man deceive you. So the very first thing that Jesus warns his disciples about is deception. Now if we go to, let's start with the online concordance. That was verse 4. If we look at the word deceive, it means to roam from safety, truth, or virtue, to go astray, deceive, to err, seduce, wander, be out of the way. Furthermore, it says to cause to stray, to lead astray, lead aside from the right way, to go astray, wander, roam, to lead away from the truth, to lead into error, to deceive, to be led into error. And then if you go to the very bottom here, to be led away into error and sin. So basically deception is a lie that causes people to be led away from the truth, to be led into error. Okay. So the first thing that Jesus warned his disciples about was that there'll be deception. In other words, the name of the game would be deception. Okay. Verse 5, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. So there shall be many false Christs. And I just wanted to share with you some of these false Christs that have, some of whom are still alive and some have died. First one I want to read about is Vessarion, a Russian who founded the Church of the Last Testament in the 1990s, claiming to be the second coming of Christ. He leads a community of around 5,000 followers in Siberia's remote abode of Dawn. And there's someone else called Inri Christo, a former waiter who in 1969 claimed to be the reincarnated Jesus Christ. He now lives in a walled compound near Brasilia, where his female disciples push him in a red satin platform, and he preaches from a white robe and crown. Then there's Moses Shongwane, a South African, a former jewelry salesman who in 1992 claimed a divine revelation that he was Jesus. He has around 40 disciples and teaches that Judgment Day is imminent. Then there's Bupete Chibwe Chishimba from Zambia, known as Jesus of Kitwe. And Kitwe is a place in Zambia. He claims to be the second coming and operates 2 unlicensed taxis. He is also known by titles like Parent Rock of the World. Then there's Jesus Matayoshi, a Japanese man, a politician who founded the World Economic Community Party in 1997, claiming to be Jesus Christ reborn. He campaigns vigorously, threatens sinners with hellfire, and believes he will bring about the end times through democracy. Then there's David Shayler from England, a former MI5 agent who claimed in 2007 that he was Jesus Christ, he adopted the feminine alter ego, Dolores Cain, to embody the divine feminine, believing this gives him deeper insight into the world. Then there's Jose Luis de Jesus Miranda from Puerto Rico, founder of Growing in Grace. He claimed in 2007 that the resurrected Christ had integrated into him. He died in 2013, and his followers later crowned him Melchizedek. And there are others who haven't been mentioned here, such as the Maitreya, who's also known as the Christ, because in some of these false religions, such as the New Age movement and in occultism in general, they believe that there's more than one Christ. So Maitreya is said to be a Christ, or one of many Christs, and he actually appeared in different parts of the world performing miracles and preaching to followers. And he said that he would just appear from nowhere and could travel around the world and just appear in different parts of the world. And there are some who say that even the Pope is a false Christ as well. Because there's one particular Pope who was quoted as saying that he was Christ under the veil of flesh. And the fact that popes, and this would apply to priests as well, that they claim to have the power and authority to forgive sins would make them false Christ as well, because only Christ has the authority to forgive sins, Christ and his Father in heaven. It says, these false Christs shall come in Jesus' name and shall deceive many. And there are many, as you can see, who are being deceived by these false Christs. And in verse 6 says, and ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. And there have been many wars that have been fought on the earth from the time of Christ up to now, and even before Christ. But the difference, I suppose, with modern warfare is that the wars that have taken place more recently have been based on deception. In fact, there's a book called The Art of War, which is claimed to have been written by a Chinese general called Sun Tzu. Now, in that book, The Art of War, there's a principle of war in which it is said all warfare is based on deception. From my research, I've come to the understanding that Sun Tzu was a fictional character. He didn't actually even exist, and that this book, The Art of War, was actually written by a Jesuit, and it's actually a Jesuit war manual. So when he says all warfare is based on deception, it's talking about how these wars that have been fought around the world are being fought basically to give back power and authority to the Pope in Rome, because the Roman Catholic Church and the office of the Pope were almost destroyed by the Protestant Reformation, and the Jesuits were created to fight Protestantism. So all these wars are being fought not only to kill Protestants, but to get the world to wander after the beast, as is written in Revelation chapter 13. So yeah, you shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. So some of them are rumors. It says, see that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. Verse 7, for nation shall rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. So, but when we go to Esword, that was verse 7, Revelation 24, verse 7. In reference to nation, it's actually, as you can see in the middle there, it says tribe. It can be a tribe, okay? And if we go to the online concordance, verse 7, says here that it could refer to a race or a tribe, especially a foreign, non-Jewish one, usually by implication a pagan, Gentile, heathen nation. but it can be a tribe. And if you look at the word, so this word nation is actually translated from the word ethnos, and ethnos is where we get the word ethnic or ethnic group. So it's talking about ethnic groups fighting each other. So it's not quite, the way we understand this is not quite correct, that we think it's nation fighting against nation. It's actually tribes fighting each other or ethnic groups fighting each other, such as what happened in Rwanda in 1994. It's said to have been a genocide, but it was actually more of a civil war between the Hutus and the Tutsis. So even here in Zimbabwe, where I live, there are two major tribes, the Shona and the Ndebele. They also used to fight each other. So that's what this is talking about. And it says here, and kingdom against kingdom. Now if we look at the word kingdom here, in fact, let's go to the online concordance. It seems to explain it a bit better. Kingdom, probably understood, it's talking about royalty or a realm. Now if you look at number 2 here, it says a kingdom, the territory subject to the rule of a king. Okay, so here where it talks about kingdom against kingdom, this should be properly understood as nations or countries fighting each other, such as what happened in World War I. By the way, if we go back to wars here, in the Art of War, it says that all warfare is based on deception, and all wars that have been fought after the creation of the Jesuit order, starting with the 30 Years' War up to 2026, all those wars, including World War I and World War II, Vietnam Wars, the Korean War, and the war in Afghanistan, which they say that the war in Afghanistan was a result of the attack on America on 9/11 in 2001, in which the official story is that Osama bin Laden orchestrated 9/11 from a cave in Afghanistan, and of course that's not true, because Osama bin Laden actually worked for the CIA. His CIA name was Tim Osman, and of course you have the war in Iraq as well. And I went to Iraq for 6 months between 2003 and 2004, in which the war was said to have happened because it was about removing Saddam Hussein and his government from power because they had weapons of mass destruction, but that turned out to be a lie. So yeah, all warfare is based on deception. So here, going on to the second half of verse 7, says, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. So famines, if we look up famines in the concordance, famines are scarcity of food. And if you see that other word there is dearth, which we find in the King James Version. The word dearth, it just means famine, or famine can also be hunger as well. And pestilences, are disease, basically. And I think everyone knows what earthquakes are. It's the quaking of the earth. And I just wanted to share something interesting with you with regards to earthquakes. There was a geologist named Phil Schneider, who it says here was giving a presentation in 1995 when he said, the federal government has now invented an earthquake device. I am a geologist and I know what I'm talking about. With the Kobe earthquake in Japan, there was no pulse wave as in a normal earthquake, none. In 1989, there was an earthquake in San Francisco, that's in California, in America. There was no pulse wave with that one either. It says, shortly after this presentation, Phil was found dead in his apartment with a piano wire wrapped around his neck. So In other words, he was suicided, which is another way of saying he was assassinated for revealing this information. Now, I've got a short video to play here with regards to earthquakes. Listen to what this man says.
Here I confronted Heizo Takenaka, the former Japanese finance minister, over why he handed over control of the Japanese financial system to a group of American and European oligarchs. He and his envoy told me that it was because Japan had been threatened by an earthquake machine. I did not believe it at the time. However, when I started exposing some of their doings, I was told by the Japanese security police that because of what I had said on places like rents.com, that Niigata City was going to be hit by an earthquake. 2 days later, Japan's largest nuclear reactor was the exact epicenter of 2 earthquakes, both 6.8 in magnitude. And that was too much of a coincidence for me. So I started doing research and found out about HAARP, H-A-A-R-P. And I realized that they really did know how to make earthquakes. And they do it by shooting a 1 billion watt microwave into the ionosphere, which is a part of the atmosphere that has a lot of energy in it, that pushes the ionosphere up into outer space, and then it rebounds. And the way it rebounds can cause earthquakes. Just like an opera singer can break a glass by singing at a certain level, or by dragging your fingernails on a blackboard, you feel a weird sensation. If they adjust the vibration for the rock underneath their target site, they can do that.
Yeah, so that's what one man had to say about earthquakes. I know some of this is hard to believe, but remember, I think even a few days ago, even President Trump said that they have certain weapons that he could not disclose to the public that the United States has. And it's even said that in the kidnap of Nicolas Maduro, the former Venezuelan president, that there was some technology that was used to incapacitate Nicolas Maduro's security forces so that they could not even fight back against the Americans as they went into Venezuela to capture Maduro. So there are weapons out there that we don't even know about. And there are other weapons other than earthquakes. There's even what's called weather warfare, weapons that are used to that are used against other countries in the form of weather, such as heavy rains that can lead to flooding. And it's even known that even in the Vietnam War, the monsoon rains were extended to cause the Viet Cong to be bogged down in the mud as they were trying to fight the Americans. And that technology is said to have been in existence since about 1914, 1915, somewhere around there. So there's technology that can be used to manipulate the weather. And it's not just a conspiracy theory. There are videos on YouTube that even talk about this, so you can go and do your own research. Verse 8, it says, all these things that Jesus has mentioned so far, all these are the beginning of sorrows. Now, if you look at what beginning of sorrows is here in the concordance, it says a pang or throe, especially of childbirth. And if we go to the online concordance, verse 8, all these are the beginning of sorrows. If we look at the word sorrows, it says here, similar to what it said on Esau, but at the bottom here it says the pain of childbirth, travail, pain, birth pangs. Okay, these things are just the beginning of things that will follow afterwards. Verse 9, then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted. And it says they, he's talking about the non-believers who deliver the Christians to be afflicted. In other words, tortured, persecuted, persecuted. It says, and shall kill you. And all this has already happened. There are some who estimate that about 50 million Christians have been killed, especially during the Dark Ages. But I think the number is way higher than 50 million. I believe that it's over 150 million Christians who have been killed through various ways, whether it be through the Inquisition or through wars, including World War I and World War II and other wars that have been fought, even in places like Serbia and in Russia, in which Orthodox Christians who have different beliefs to the Catholic Church have been killed. And even the Waldenses as well, and Albigenses in France and Italy and many other places, and in Africa as well, have been killed. This is what this is talking about here. And ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. And of course, not when it regards to the persecution and killing of Christians. Even the Christians were killed in the Colosseums during the times of when pagan Rome was ruling. It's referring to that as well. So it says here, and ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. So Christians shall be hated by the whole world. There'll come a time when Christians are accused of causing calamities on the earth because they refuse to align themselves with climate change laws. But yeah, that's something that maybe we can discuss in another video. And the last verse I'm going to read today is this one here, and then shall many be offended. So those who are offended are not these ones who are delivering up Christians. It's the Christians themselves who will be offended. Just like many disciples were offended by what Christ said. For instance, when he said that they should eat his flesh and drink his blood, which he didn't mean that literally. Jesus was not encouraging cannibalism. But many were offended by some of the things that Jesus said. And even when he said that it's hard for rich people to be saved, there's some who even said, who then shall be saved? And in verse 10 goes on saying, says, many shall be offended and shall betray one another. So Christians will even betray one another. Why? Because of persecution, because they want an easy life. So, for instance, if you look at what happened during this pandemic, there were Christians who started basically betraying one another, started hating each other because some conformed to the agenda behind this pandemic and some didn't. Especially the non-conformers who didn't take the poke, they were seen as the enemy, and some were betrayed. It was said by some that they should not be allowed to send their children to school, they should not be allowed to work because they would not obey the mandate of taking the poke. Okay. And verse 10 ends by saying, and shall hate one another. So Christians will even hate one another, even though Jesus said that we should love one another, because that will be the sign that shows that we are of Christ. Okay, so that's where I'll stop today. I'll stop at verse 10 and then I'll carry on from verse 11 onwards in the next video. I hope this was a blessing to you, and maybe it helped you to understand some things you didn't understand, or to see things in a different way, to understand things differently to how you'd understood them. Thanks for watching the video, and I'll see you in the next one.